Hello everybody, it's Holger Mueller here from Constellation Research, welcoming you to episode 113. 13 is a lucky number, of course, with my partner in crime, Liz Miller. Hey Liz, how are you doing?
Hi, wait a minute. It is the 13th. Well, yeah, it's a lot of things, but 113. We're here, we made it. I don't know how, but we're here. You are in the Big Apple?
In the Big Apple this week, yes, I was here for ADP's Analyst Summit and yesterday for
Nice.
Neo4J's GraphSummit. Had the chance to change hats. As you can see, my haircut is kind of like messed up, like getting HCM to next gen apps hat on. But yeah, two good very events.
What, in 1 week? You had to do both of your coverage areas in 1 week.
Back-to-back days. This is super hard. I have to dump all my research brain in one area, in a hotel room,
clean it out,
fast load the other one up there,
Yeah,
change shoes.
bad.
Obviously, no, didn't change shoes.
Well, we're going to talk about events in a few minutes, so stick around with us and make sure that you check that out. We're going to do a little bit of an event preview. But in the meantime, Holger, has there been any news?
Well, it's earnings season, right? Most likely also I'm
boy,
commenting on the most, right? I mean, all the big guys have reported, more big guys are coming. Comforting good news from HPE this week, right? The acquisition of Juniper has gone through, the network revenue is up, the server revenue is up. AI is pretty much helping everybody all the way to like robotic process automation vendors, right? Which for the first time were almost profitable. Of course, talking about the company with the robot right here. So, yeah. That's good news.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is I think we're hearing it's certainly good news. We're starting to see AI bookings certainly at point solution vendors. Yeah, we're certainly seeing it in contact center, right? We're certainly seeing it in marketing, certainly seeing it across all service, where you're starting to see AI bookings really take over a lot of those earning calls, where you're starting to see those AI bookings hit those double digits, right? And we're not seeing it in that weird pandemic push, right? So it's not this artificial high that's coming that we're all then going to have to wait for the crash as far as those AI bookings go. They've been slow and steady. They've been growing. People are starting to apply. They're getting past their reviews. But we're starting to see people also maybe not be able to move past that point of experimentation. We're starting to see those initial bookings maybe start to drag out. They're looking at maybe longer testing. I'm certainly hearing that with all of the executives we're talking to of like, well, we're just going to do another round of POC testing. We're going to do another round just to make sure it's perfectly right. And it makes me worry that we're getting into a stage of a bit of AI and certainly agentic stagnation, where something's holding us back. And I think we're going to start to see that bear out in some of these revenues. But it's a good news that some of the first points of AI application and in some of those solutions, everyone expected that things like marketing, coding, with developers, they expected to see customer service be some of the first places where AI was going to make a real difference. And I think we're starting to see that in some of those growth and some of those bookings.
Right. No, AI is helping everybody. There's no question about it. I see people doing real stuff in 2025, right? Might be the different areas of automation and no more analysis paralysis kind of like. But the interesting thing is, of course, the overall growth numbers of the providers on the servers, on the networking side are not exponentially going up. They're going nicely up in the high teens, in the 20s, but it's something they would have done anyway. And their regular server sales, and talk about HPE, kind of like gets cannibalized for the other stuff. So budgets are kind of like fixed for enterprise, so nothing's really changing. But it's moving all across the stack, right? Yesterday was with our colleague Michael Nee at Neo4J's GraphSummit, and very interesting adoption numbers on the graph side, which they're seeing, and they're seeing lots of implementations happening right now. So at the same time, the HCM vendors are all gearing up. I was at ADP's Analyst Summit this week, all about assisting employees, managers, HR professionals in their transactions with AI. So it's going to be very interesting how the whole category of HCM will adopt AI in this fall, because all big conferences are happening right now. So more things happening.
I was just at Hubspot, and I think the interesting thing for Hubspot is that Hubspot, it's hard to use them as a leading indicator of where in sales, service, and marketing where AI is going to go, because HubSpot has always been so practical. Right. And if you are a mid-market company, you can trust HubSpot because they're coming out with really practical, rock solid applications. And they've done that across all of their hubs. They've got Content Hub, they have But yesterday, and this past week, they have announced things like shifting to Data Hub, because they need a practical place where data can be accumulated and where that unstructured and structured data can come together. But again, in a very HubSpotian way, I guess we can call it that, they're being exceedingly practical about where AI is, and they're looking at AI where AI is assisting you. And that's just built into the platform, right? Where AI is assisting the person, is assisting the practitioner, that's just built in. But then there are those places where AI can be that hybrid function with the person. And that's how they really are segmenting and thinking about their AI. And I think that's gonna help the mid-market adopt, and you're gonna see more of that adoption in the mid-market because of those practical measures. Nothing that they were talking about was pie in the sky. Gosh, that's so bright and shiny. I never knew that fancy robot could go do that thing, right? Yeah. That's just not HubSpot's space. But I think what we saw there on the ground were people getting really excited about knowing exactly what they could do, knowing exactly what that outcome they could expect would be, but also, and I think more importantly, and for their financials, I think we're going to see this bear out, is you saw people excited about knowing what they should expect from HubSpot, right? From pricing, from structure, from affordability, from being able to, place AI where it needed to be. It wasn't this guessing game that unfortunately, some of the big platforms with the big robots, there's a bit of a guess of like, well, I could build this and I could build that and I could build anything I want. And then you realize you don't have the data for it. It's kind of a bummer. Right?
Yeah. Data is a problem, but I think you're absolutely right. We'll see faster and more enterprise-wide adoption of AI in the SMB, because the hand-to-machine ratio requires you to do this when your competitor's doing this. And like make the example back to HR. You have 2 HR people, and your competitor's using AI, and they're hiring people faster and onboarding them faster and getting their payroll done more accurately. You have to react, right? It's not like when a large multinational company say, well, we're doing our pilot in the Netherlands, and we'll wait till the end of the year how that's going, and then we'll think about rolling out further, right? That wake-up moment will happen later, right? Because when all these pilots are going well and people are saying, shoot, why haven't we done this earlier? So I think it's going to happen to large enterprise. But it's interesting that the adjacent things are doing well, right? Before, name was escaping me, too much time in the Big Apple, right? UiPath earnings, right? They're saying like RPA in combination with AI is the interesting combination, because you're doing something with the agent. You can't do everything. I need a new set of automation, which I used to have from robotic process automation, to help me with that, right? And hey, it got UiPath for the first time to almost to a black zero, you can say, with some financial accounting and with tax and benefits and other stuff, but they've never been so profitable, right? And then if you go down the stack, right, very interesting, just the Broadcom at earnings, right? And Broadcom is pretty much 50% now an AI company, right? They went from being the company which had some AI because Google would build chips with them, to claiming that they have the 4th hyperscaler. There are not so many hyperscalers out there anymore for their platform. So AI is helping on all levels, right? And then to our friends over in Waldorf, right, they had a big announcement, which we didn't get fully briefed of, right? I mean, SAP is going to invest 20 billion euro over the next 10 years into sovereign cloud, right?
Yes.
And 20 billion, of course, pales to any other cloud vendor for 1 year, right? But the interesting thing is, I said they're going to invest in 3 areas. They're going to invest into their in-house cloud, which they de-emphasized for partnering with public clouds. They're going to invest in sovereign cloud capabilities at customers on premises. We should talk about that in a sec. And then, of course, the public cloud with Microsoft. These 3 areas were mentioned in the press release, which kind of like was in the summer doldrums and didn't get too much attention. The interesting thing is the cloud at customer perspective, which SAP right now does not recognize as cloud revenue. The competition does, because like Oracle says, I'm running this like a cloud data center, but it's a customer, but it's cloud revenue. It scales up, scales down. You don't have to pay for it. HPE does that same thing. You have a server, you have capacity to use more or less. It's cloud revenue. SAP has not been doing this, which probably didn't hurt them. So now with putting the infrastructure to run in customer data centers, the cloud deployment will, I think, allow them, I'm not a finance guy, to recognize cloud revenue, which is actually the game what's all about.
But what does that have an impact on, aside from I moved numbers on a spreadsheet? And the thing that, I think you and I get to see a bit of, and especially you because of your relationship with a lot of the members of the board, there is often, there's the first tangible bit of like, great, this looked really great. We could recognize the revenue from it, but there's always another strategy behind it. Like there's always 2 more leaps forward that a lot of folks might not see. So what are you seeing from that type of investment? What's that like? Where do you see this heading?
Well, what we see is that sovereign cloud is a real concern for boards and CIOs and anybody, right? CFOs in Europe. And Christian Clown has been public before towards the hyperscalers that they have not done enough for providing sovereign clouds in Europe on their infrastructure, right? The fear right now is that you don't own the software supply chain. So the press release from SAP is all over open source, which is inspectable and visible, not using any of the proprietary stacks where, God forbid, a US administration could force a US-based software vendor, a US-based national to put in some malicious spyware code into some infrastructure services, and poof goes your sovereign cloud running on US software, right? So we'll see how real those fears and concerns are and relevant are, but that's the real concern. And I don't think anybody at SAP wants to spend 20 billion into hardware, into infrastructure, right? So, but it poses a necessity for them to move their customers to S4HANA, public cloud, private cloud, own cloud, sovereign cloud, whatever it's going to be, and whatever the program is. I'm smelling, Liz, I'm smelling Rise 2.0 or new name program in January to go to sovereign cloud. I don't hear it smelling somewhere in the background, but that could be happening. So
we'll see what happens.
But obviously they need to do it, right? Yeah. So,
but I think it, once again, I think it is also a bit of SAP being very realistic and honest about itself. Right. And I think that it's also very realistic and honest for its European customers. We don't necessarily have that lens a lot of times within some of the large American hyperscalers, right? We know what those customers need. We know what those customers are asking us for. We might have folks based in those regions. I think SAP's point of view and SAP's kind of opinion on it becomes one to watch, right? It becomes something that becomes really something we have to pay attention to, because if SAP is worrying about it, you better believe that they're getting a front row seat to what a lot of customers beyond their own customers are really thinking about. So I thought it was an interesting move, but I was curious to ask you where you thought this was heading. So that's great. Yeah, hey, listen, we gotta jump here. We've been going on for we gotta go. Oh my gosh. But stick around. There is a conversation that Holger has had with Mike Nee. You're going to hear a lot about Graph. That's going to be really super important. I want y'all to take notes. You're going to be hearing a lot about Graph coming up, but some people are not going to use the term correctly. So it's going to be important to take note of what Mike and what Holger are talking about. Holger and I are going to come back with a little bit of event silly season preview, and then we're out of here. So stick around.
Hello everybody, it's Holger Mueller here from almost live from New York, from Neo4J Summit next day morning, here with my colleague, partner, friend Mike Nee, with some of our key takeaways from Neo4J's GraphSummit, which happened here yesterday.
Well, it's actually a great summit. And if those thought that this was a summit for graph specialists to think about connections to solve fraud, they have to think again, right? This was really a recognition of just the important role that graph databases are playing in the emerging space of AI and decision automation.
Correct, and fantastic customers.
Oh, like just tremendous story.
Right? I mean, sometimes like 10 years ago, the graph space did have like small pet projects or side projects and so on, and smaller companies, which doesn't take anything away. There was only large, significant companies, which are all under NDA, but super impressive to see the uptake there. And interesting, like CEO Emil, he only made a joke even that he wouldn't talk about AI for a long time, right? In his keynote.
He tried. But I mean, I think momentum was clear. I mean, you have a company that is continuing to grow. It's a leader in its space. And frankly, hit 200 million late last year, Q4, correct? And you still continue to see its charge forward in terms of really leading in terms of innovations in the graph database side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting to see there seems to be only one. We shouldn't mention the ones before, right? But Neo4j definitely have the mind share and the attention in the graph space right now, which is interesting. And I mean, the big news breakthrough was that they solved one of the most latent or the most inherent issues that graphs have had in the past, which was like they wouldn't scale or would have scaling issues. Yes. And they came up with, I like it because I talk about infinite computing, and they came up with the brand Infinite
Oh,
Graph.
really? That's why it's really good? I think just because of line to naming?
No, we need no, I mean, my 6 years of Latin have to be for good for something, right? So infinity, right? Infinite computing resources, nobody can count them. Infinite solutions built on top of that, and infinite graph, which you don't have to worry about scaling. Super, super important in the area of AI.
Yeah, well, I mean, that and the fact that it really allows you to really be that graph across multi-cloud, which is becoming increasingly important as people thinking about their modern data estate. But you know what I like? There's a couple things I geeked out on. One, Cypher. They got versioning in Cypher. I know this is an old problem, especially you start thinking about separation of compute and storage and spreading out across multiple clouds. You're really going to have to think about how to maintain that control. I know it's a little geeky down the weeds, but something that solves a real, quality of life problem for folks managing these environments. And frankly, I thought that the thing that really catches my eye, and I know it's going to be obvious because in data pipelining, you already seen this on the analytics side, on the data management side. But one of the big problems they solved was simplifying how do I actually build a graph. I mean, AI clearly not only driving the need for graph databases, but fundamentally make it much easier to build these things, to ingest it, to be able to start leveraging some of the tools of analytics around graph in natural language, and to be able to build out your graph.
And a lot of out-of-the-box tools, right? I mean, I'm here for seeing how can I integrate graph into my application, my strategic in-house development, and very little talk about the developer side, right? So which is a good thing on the other side, because we might have seen business users, low-code, no-code-ish, like adding graph information to make sure that RAG on their UI application works.
Well, absolutely. I think they're trying to get away from just the early adopter audience, which they still have a lot of. I mean, frankly, folks who know they have a graph-oriented problem, fraud, right, network. And we saw some interesting stories, like you said, in customer side, who were really early adopters, and now they're broadening out, and you can see the investments in their product to do so. And therefore, I thought the real story here was that data and AI leaders really should be recognizing the increasingly important role that graph database is going to play to get them, ensuring grounded and explainable AI.
Correct. And working, not hallucinating AI, right? So having the latest updates available, what is available in the graph, which can ground your data, which may not be in your relational data.
Well, I mean, throw some numbers on it. I mean, I know we've been on the data side and seeing, 56% accuracy if you're going straight off of the catalog when you have a query. But when you have the graph database in the middle serving as semantics, you're seeing the lift to high 80s, 90% for all that accuracy. And that may not be enough for some, but it builds a huge amount of credibility and trust in organizations to start using these AI applications, which is so important as we start thinking about how to expand from sort of hard-coded fraud applications to what Emil was saying, their CEO, how do we get to these kind of dynamic, context-driven, more intelligent applications.
Sure. So what can they do better as we're wrapping up here?
Well, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I think there's a couple things here. One, it's around how do you start experimenting and using this for better decisioning? And that's clearly much closer to my world. And whether it's solving smaller problems, I mean, we saw, let's just building back to a customer example, which was, I think, fresh for Graph, which was, I don't know if we can say the name, but think about it as a large cable provider.
No, we can't say the name.
No, we can't say the name.
No.
But what was interesting was you're really using that geospatial graph around not just how to solve real customer problems, but actually solving for a future problem as you get to fiber optics. And each one of these fibers, 128 in a bundle, being able to be split again, and having to understand what's going on, where the equipment's being powered, and seeing for any person who's around them, how do I actually get to really solving real world problems outside of the more traditional space? And we're going to see expansion.
Fantastic showcase.
Fantastic
use case. Probably the best customer showcase on stage, I would say. Yeah. From my perspective, I mean, as product developers, we both are former product developers, right? We like that people take care of the scalability, reliability, and other things, which clearly Neo4j has done now with the InfiniGraph.
Right.
Now they're in this vacuum leadership role to be the leader, and we always expect as analysts and customers that market leaders lead from a vision perspective. And that's, I think, where Neo4j can get a little bit better. What's the role of the graph in the AI area? What are the opportunities? What are the use cases? But I think that's something to come in the rest of 2025.
Well, they're probably keeping busy, given that the market has actually come to them, and if they probably have a window of a couple of years now where graph databases can be right in the middle of this controversy of how do I actually ground graph database, graph RAG, clearly in the minds here around how people are looking at how to ground their AI initiatives. So certainly something that is where data and AI leaders will have to be actually looking at this closely.
Absolutely right. Nothing to add from my side. Let us know what you think about graph databases, RAG, grounding, anything like this, Neo4j in specific. Our socials are here at the bottom. Love to hear from you. And this is over and out from New York. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Holger.
Okay, as promised, everyone, Holger and I tend to do this before every silly season. And for those of you who do not understand what this madness is, there are two distinct times of year when everyone and I'm getting more convinced, Holger, that everyone's getting on a conference call with each other. All these rival companies, there is some type of secret underground call that happens, and they all say, what are the 2 weeks that we should stack every single one of our events to make these people lose their minds? That's right. It's called silly season, everyone. It happens in the spring. It somehow happens worse in the fall, so that when you get through spring silly season, you think to yourself, oh my God, it can't be this bad. It can't be this bad ever again. And then you hit the fall and you realize, yes, it can be worse. And it's happening again. Holger, what does your roadshow start to look like heading into the fall?
Oh, it's a silly season, like you said, right? So this week I'm in New York. Next week I'm in Europe for some undisclosed work, which we sometimes have to do. And then I'm flying straight back to Workday Rising, which is in San Francisco. And then going back to HR Tech on Thursday. Meet me at the Cornerstone booth for an Ask Me Anything kind of session, which I look forward. It's going to be interesting what they're going to be asking for. And then it's a quick laundry change to make it to, for the first time, honored to be invited by Qualcomm to Snapdragon Summit, which happens on one of the Hawaiian Islands. But Qualcomm is making significant progress with their inference AI chips and an overall like a relevant platform provider in the AI game with their low energy platform. So very much looking forward to it. And the last week, 29th, what is happening there? Oh, we have our own, very own COI, Constellation Research AI Forum happening in Dallas, Washington, which makes me miss some of the UiPath things, like I miss Boxworks next week. So apologies to all the vendors who can't make it. That's my September. How does your September look like?
September's kind of a mess. I'm not going to complain about this though. I do get 1 week off the road in September, which it was shocking to me. But yeah, so I mean, it kicked off. Silly season kicked off with Inbound from Hubspot. Then up next, it's going to be some time with the team at Verint. Sure, we're going to get a little more inside scoop on that acquisition, the Tom Bravo acquisition there. But we are there to see what's happening with AI and what's happening in the contact center. Then I get to be home for a week, and then it's an analyst summit from 5/9. Then it's Sprinklers Analyst Summit, and then heading over to London for Amazon Connect Horizons. We're going to hear a little bit more about that contact center solution, and that gets me into October. But I got to tell you, Holger, October looks crazier than September.
No,
and I didn't think that was
sure. Less miles for me to travel.
Okay.
No European trip in there, so fine.
Oh,
but
so
we both have European trips, right? So do you want to go for October as you're on a roll, or you want me to go?
October, we've got SAP Connect in the same week as IBM Tech Exchange. Right,
yes,
so we got to bounce. We got to bounce there. Then we've got Dreamforce. So but right before Dreamforce, we're wedging in Oracle AI World, not Cloud World. Everybody, change the name.
No,
Oracle's AI World. We're bouncing in for that. Then Dreamforce. Then we've got this event. It's this crazy thing where everyone gets on planes and heads to California to a little spot called Half Moon Bay. That's right. It is Constellation's Connected Enterprise, CCE for short. In that one of the last weeks of October, and then I head to Adobe Max, which is thankfully in Los Angeles, so that makes October a little bit easier.
That kind of helps. You have pretty much the same schedule for me, except for the first full week in October. It's not just SAP Connect, but also Dayforce in Las Vegas, the first of the HR conference. Obviously, the week after with Oracle AI World is going to be about HR. At the same time, Workday Rising happening earlier. And then CCE, like you said, in the week after CCE, there's an IBM Analyst Summit happening again back in Boston, from all places where you want to go. So, yeah, that concludes my October. Let's not look November. That's too crazy.
I can't even look into
November. Do you want to be going to November?
No, I kind of don't.
Yeah,
no.
Yeah,
but here's the thing. But this is what I want us to talk about. Lots of events coming. What are the two things you expect to hear outside of AI? Can't be AI, right? Because we're of course going to hear about. I mean, Oracle changed the name of the event to AI World, for crying out loud, right? So everyone's going to be talking about AI. But what are the two things you expect to hear just after that?
We will see. What is going to be cloud?
You think cloud? I'm funny enough. I'm starting to hear a lot of people certainly talking about process. right? And to your earlier point that you made in our intro, right? They're not, a lot of these organizations don't necessarily know to call it RPA, right? But they're starting to call it things like process mining. We've got to figure out what processes, what operational processes we can automate. I think that's one of the funny things that is coming out of AI is, yes, we can automate all of these workflows, but a lot of these workflows are waiting for it now, existing business processes. And so they're trying to figure out, wait, beyond the 3 we knew about, what are some of the other processes that shouldn't be on people's plates and that we should be actually automating? And if you don't, if you haven't been working with something like a Signavio, if you haven't been working with Pega, if you haven't been,
I agree on processes, right? But processes kind of like hop out because AI changes your process. So of course, process automation, like what we said in UiPath in the other segment, your RPA changes because your AI changes, right? So, but a lot of
these folks who haven't heard about it, they got to do it. So listen, folks, we're out of here. Listen, this is the end of the episode. Thanks so much for joining us. Next up, you are going to see Larry Dignan and Martin Schneider. But for us, we'll see you
out in
episode
silly
115.
season, say hi. We always have time to step and say hello. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I have new glasses. Yeah, every year in summer I get new glasses. Episode number?
105.
No, we must be higher.
Maybe?
No, I think we're higher.
She'll put it in the chat. It's coming. It's coming. It'll be in the chat any second.
The real-time lookup speed of Ask Hannah AI. Oh my God.
113. Episode 113. Episode 113.
See, I knew we were higher. How were you faster?
113.
Where did you look it up?
She put it in the title of the.
I'm gonna dump Ask Hannah and do Ask Liz now.
No, Hannah beat us all by putting it in the actual title of the look up.
Oh, I see. Refined, sophisticated.
It's like she's seasoned and
for me.
Professional about this. Shit, we need to find someone who could be a clown show again. Damn it. Okay.
Come on,
okay,
13 episodes.
I'm ready.
All right, let's go.